I was matched with my high school rival on a blind date. Ryan? His voice was just as deep as it was on my memories. I will never forget the first time I met Leo. The moment our eyes met, the clamor of the bar receded into a hushed whisper, and there he stood, a figure carved from the memories I had long buried under years of careful neglect. Leo was the last person I expected to encounter in a place like this. I managed a nod, my own name sounding foreign as it fell from his lips. Leo, I never thought I'd ever see me again. He finished my sentence with a chuckle that didn't quite reach his eyes. As he stepped closer, I could smell him better. It was dizzy. You haven't changed a bit, he said, and I wondered if he meant more than just appearances. You see, Leo and I hadn't seen each other in over 15 years, and I thought we would never have to again after high school. But that all changed when I matched him on this new dating app that was trending on all socials. Amor Kaikus is what the app was called. It loosely translated to blind love. It was a dating app that required no images or media. Furthermore, we weren't allowed to share other social media handles or even phone numbers until the first meeting. That's why I had gone across town to this dingy bar in the middle of nowhere, to officially meet Leo and find out what he looked like. Because prior to this meeting, I had no idea what he looked like or who he was. Over the phone, Leo was nothing short of perfect. He was patient, kind, and very intelligent. He was a fireman that was very in love with his job. The love was very contagious. On most nights while he regaled me with his exploits of the day, I would usually find myself fantasizing about being there and backing him up. We had been speaking for the better part of 2 weeks and have not been able to meet up because of our conflicting schedules. Today had provided a sliver of an opportunity. It demanded I slacked a little on my work for tonight, but for Leo, it was worth it. With my hand still firmly in his after a handshake, Leo led me all the way to a quiet corner in the back room and ordered us drinks. Now that we were in a location with better lighting, I could make out Leo's features a little better. The most striking thing about him was his height, obviously, and if I had to guess, I would say he was somewhere between 6'2" and 6'4", whereas I stood proudly at 5'11". Thankfully, I've never been one to fret about height differences and whatnot. I've always been very comfortable in my skin, and sitting next to Leo, who looked like a professional bodybuilder now that he had taken off his jacket, didn't faze me too much. Waiter, we would like to order, Leo hollered at one of the moving waiters. It was pretty obvious he was a regular here. If his relaxed posture didn't give it away, then the overly friendly handshake with the waiter who arrived at our table not too long after did. Leo, my man, I take it that you'd have the usual? The waiter inquired as he fished out his notepad. You know me too well, Steve. Leo raised his hands in surrender. And what would your friend be having? The waiter gestured at me, and I was immediately snapped out of my mini-trance. I had gotten carried away watching Leo. I would like a glass of iced tea, please, I managed to stammer out. As the waiter walked away to retrieve our orders, I and Leo's eyes met. He had honey-brown orbs and his faint scar horizontally running across the bridge of his nose. Truth be told, if I knew that Leo was the same Leonard Winchester from my high school, then I wouldn't be here. Heck, he wouldn't have had any real reasons to keep talking. You see, Leo and I were what you would call rivals. Academic rivals, to be precise. We had been butting heads and vying for a valedictorian since middle school, and we were almost never on the same page on anything outside our individual desire to academically succeed. Despite Leo being the star of the school's football team, he still managed to remain an academic powerhouse. Just like myself, Leo was aiming for Harvard. I wasn't sure why, neither did I particularly care at the time, because the Harvard finance program was my ticket to a big league stock firm in New York, and that was all that mattered to me. But right there, as I sat across one of the most intellectual men I knew, I couldn't help but wonder what had happened to him and how he ended up a fireman. No, absolutely not. Don't give me that look. I don't want a pity party. You beat me fair and square. I didn't even know I was giving him a look. I must have gotten carried away with my thoughts. It's not like that at all. I was just wondering, why firefighting? Any college in the country would be more than happy to have had you. Leo chose that moment to busy himself with his glass, so I decided to leave it alone. Maybe he didn't want to talk about it. I'm sorry if I asked a sensitive question. Getting into Harvard was my dad's dream. Leo cut in as he placed his now half-empty glass on the table. I lost both parents in a forest fire at a camping trip when I was 12, and by the time I made it to high school and heard about the valedictorian program, I saw it as an opportunity to make his dream come true. My heart sank at Leo's words. I had no idea he had lost his parents to such a tragic fate. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I tried to apologize to him, but he held out a hand to stop me. Don't worry about it, really. Harvard was my dad's dream, not mine. I don't know if I would have been happy if I had managed to get in, Leo said as he sank into the plush cushion of the bar's couch. I still couldn't help but feel a little bad for him. I had come between him and his deceased father's dream. Honestly, it's hard not to feel bad, man. I had no idea, I said as I ran my finger across the rim of my glass. It's okay, that's life. Shit happens. Besides, with Harvard out of my reach, I was able to focus on my own dreams. Oh? What's that? I asked, perking up. Firefighting, Leo said with a smile that threatened to split his face in two. I immediately recalled the excitement that was evident in Leo's voice when we would talk over the phone this past week and he would tell me about his day at the station. All right, enough with the sob stories. We're here to have fun, Leo announced as he rose to his feet. He pointed towards the rows of pool tables behind him and said, I know tonight has been a far cry from what you or I expected, but we can still salvage this. Let's play some pool. I've never played before. Well, in real life. I play virtual pool. I chuckled nervously. Perfect. That means you know the rules and we don't have to go over the concept from scratch, Leo said as he gently took my hands and led me towards the pool tables. 1 hour later. The clatter of pool balls was winding down, and I could feel the game drawing to a close. I lined up my shot, squinting one eye as Leo had taught me moments ago, but instead of hitting the cue ball, my stick slipped, grazing the 8 ball and sending it tumbling into a pocket. Whoops. Guess I just screwed up the game, I said with a sheepish grin. Leo burst into laughter. That's the Ryan I remember, always jumping the gun. You haven't changed a bit since that premature celebration when you thought you aced the chemistry final, I chuckled. Hey, in my defense, I did ace it. Just not as well as you. We moved to the bar to grab another round of drinks, and I couldn't help but bring up another memory. You know, this reminds me of the time we tried to brew our own beer for that science project. Leo snorted, nearly spilling his drink. Yeah, and let's not forget your innovative approach to the project. If at first you don't succeed, add more hops, you said. I think we added everything but the kitchen sink. Remember when you tried to calculate the exact angle to toss paper balls into the trash from across the room? I asked, recalling one of our more ridiculous competitions. Leo nodded with a loud laugh. And you were determined to prove that your trajectory formula was superior. I think we got more paper on the floor than in the bin that day. We both glanced outside. The rain had lessened to a drizzle. Looks like it's clearing up, I observed, and Leo nodded, checking his watch. Time flies when you're having fun, he said, and there was a hint of reluctance in his voice that matched my own. As we gathered our things, I felt the night's end looming over us, an inevitable return to reality. But I wasn't ready to let go just yet. Hey Leo, I started, my voice a little hesitant. Thanks for the game, and for being cool about everything. He looked at me, his honey brown eyes softening. No problem, Ryan. Despite it not being what we planned for tonight, it's been great catching up with you. Like old times, but without the arguments or trying to bite the other's head off. We reached the entrance and Leo turned to me, his arms opening for a hug. That moment, my emotions overruled my head, and I leaned in, pressing a quick kiss to his cheek. It was an impulse, and I didn't even realize what I was doing till I had done it. Leo froze for a split second, surprise flickering across his face. Then he laughed, the sound deep and genuine. Bold move, Ryan, he said, but there was no anger there, only a smirk. I shrugged, trying to play it cool despite the blush I could feel creeping up my neck. Sorry, got carried away. Force of habit? Good habits, I'd say, Leo replied, his smile reassuring. We stepped out into the night, the air fresh with the scent of rain. That reminds me, I had no idea you were gay. I thought you had a thing with Gwen Jansen back in high school, I asked Leo as I fell into step with him. I've been dating women all my life, and it just felt like something was missing. I had no idea what it was, and I spent a year and a half trying to figure out what was wrong. I had no idea that the problem was staring me point blank in the face. I placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. I'm sorry. That must have been so difficult. He nodded before speaking. The first time I got with a guy, I instantly knew that this was what had been missing all my life. But due to the nature of my job, I haven't been able to build a proper relationship. It's been one situationship after another. At least you were getting some action, I half-joked as I nudged him with my elbow. I didn't say it was all bad, Leo said as he laughed out loud. But I crave stability. I'm not getting any younger. Oh, please, you sound like a middle-aged woman, Leo and I continued laughing at varying intervals until he ultimately flagged down a taxi. I hailed a taxi, and just as I was about to climb in, Leo's voice stopped me. "Hey Ryan," he said, a hint of hesitancy in his voice. I've been trying to come to terms with who I am, and it's been a struggle. I could really use a friend right now. Someone to talk to about all this." I turned back, seeing the earnest plea in his eyes. "Of course, Leo. Whatever you need, I'm here for you." A grateful smile crossed his face. "Thanks, man. I appreciate it more than you know." As I stepped into the taxi, I felt that our unexpected reunion must mean something special. 3 days later. 3 days had passed since the pool game, and the memory of it was like a warm light in the back of my mind. I had thought the date went well, surprisingly so, given that Leo and I were once high school rivals. The initial awkwardness that should have ruined the night had dissipated almost as soon as we'd picked up the pool sticks. Did I deserve to be with someone as forgiving as Leo? The question haunted me, echoing around the empty spaces of my office building. I remember the look on his face when the valedictorian announcement was made. A brief flash of disappointment quickly masked by a smile. It was that same smile he wore when he let me win at pool, a gesture of goodwill that I now realized was a part of who he was. Furthermore, he was just coming out and didn't know how to handle all of that. I felt like I wasn't certain I was in the best position to help him. As I mulled over these thoughts, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Leo. A simple, "Hey, how's it going?" that seemed to pierce through the fog of my uncertainty. I stared at the screen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. This was the moment to either open up about my internal turmoil or to bury it deeper. Taking a deep breath, I began to type. "Hey Leo, I've been thinking about high school a lot lately." I paused, then continued. "About the valedictorian thing. I just want to say I'm sorry if it ever felt like I took something from you." The response came quicker than I expected, and Leo's words were kinder than I expected.
"Ryan, that's ancient history. We were kids."
I had to visibly fight back a blush from Leo's words, because all of this was entirely new for me.
"Hey Ryan, you think we could meet up? I've got something to tell you in person, and I also really miss you and need to see you again. If that's okay by you," his message read. "I'd also like to talk to you about my coming out."
And just like that, the crisis seemed to resolve itself. Leo was offering me a chance, not just to clear the air, but to move forward, together. I smiled, the knot in my stomach unraveling. "I'd like that," I replied. "Let's do it." 45 minutes later, the coffee shop was a cozy place. I arrived a little after 11 p.m. at the 24-hour cafe. I ordered a cappuccino, the froth artfully swirled by the barista, and waited for Leo. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, replaying our last encounter. Pool game, the unexpected kiss. I wondered if things would be different now if that moment had changed the dynamic between us. Leo arrived right on time. He wore a simple t-shirt and jeans, but they did nothing to hide the strength in his frame. His smile was as bright as ever, and any lingering doubts I had melted away with his easy greeting.
"Hey Ryan," he said, pulling up a chair. "Hope you haven't been waiting long."
"Just got here myself," I replied, my nerves settling. "Ordered you a coffee. Hope that's all right."
"Perfect,"
he said, taking a sip from the cup in front of him.
"So, you've been thinking about high school, huh?"
I nodded, taking a deep breath. "Yeah, I have. About the valedictorian thing. I just wanted to clear the air." Leo leaned back, his gaze steady.
"Ryan, that was years ago. We were just kids trying to outdo each other. It's all history now."
I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. "I'm glad to hear you say that. I've always admired you, even back then." A chuckle escaped him.
"Admiration was mutual, believe it or not. We pushed each other to be better. And look at us now."
Leo downed the last of his coffee and rose to his feet.
"Come on, let's get some fresh air."
Leo's invitation to step outside for a walk was a welcome one. The night air was cool against my skin as we left the coffee shop behind. Walking beside him, I felt a sense of ease I hadn't known in years. As we strolled under the city lights, Leo broke the silence.
"These last few days have been nothing short of exciting," he confessed, his voice carrying a new depth. "I really want us to explore this, whatever this is between us, without letting our high school history get in the way."
I listened to Leo speak, my heart racing with anxiety.
"I really hope you don't get scared and pull away."
Leo finished with a heavy sigh that spoke volumes to the emotional exhaustion he was burdened with. "I'd like to see where this goes too. I won't get scared again," I assured him. Leo smiled and took my hands in his as we continued our walk. And then suddenly, I remembered. He had mentioned he had something to tell me. "Leo, you said you wanted to talk about your coming out?" Leo's eyes widened in recollection.
"I was hoping you'd forget, really."
He chuckled as he ran his hand through his hair.
"The truth is, I haven't actually come out."
A tense silence settled between us before I finally broke it. Dude, you were so dramatic. I laughed as I nudged him with my elbow. But hey, I'm glad you're comfortable enough to share this with me. So, I continued, how are you feeling about all this? Leo took a deep breath, his eyes meeting mine.
It's been a journey, Ryan. You know, last night I told you I didn't realize what I was missing. I dated women because that's what I thought I was supposed to do, but it never felt right.
I nodded, encouraging him to continue.
When I finally allowed myself to explore my feelings, to go on a date with a guy, it was like a light bulb went off. Everything made sense, he said,
a faint smile playing on his lips. I know what that's like, I replied, genuinely happy for him.
Yeah, it's been liberating, but also daunting. I mean, coming out is a big deal, especially in a profession like mine. Firefighting isn't exactly known for being, well, the most open-minded field.
I reached for his hand. But it's who you are, and the people who matter, the ones who truly care about you, they'll accept you, and I'll be right there with you, every step of the way. Leo's eyes shone with unshed tears, and he squeezed my hand in gratitude.
Thanks, man. That means a lot. I've been thinking about how to do it, you know. I don't want it to be a big spectacle, but I also don't want to hide anymore.
We'll figure it out together, I assured him. Maybe start with the people closest to you, the ones you trust the most. It doesn't have to be all at once. He nodded, stuffing his free hand in his pocket.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan. One step at a time.
We continued walking for a few more minutes until we reached a streetlight to cast a warm glow around us. Leo turned to face me, his eyes reflecting a sincere desire.
This is my stop, Ryan.
It appears to be. I chuckled at his bashful nature. How someone could be so imposing and so gentle all at the same time was beyond me. It really clashed with his boisterous persona back in high school. Leo placed his hand on my cheek tenderly and began running small circles on them.
These past few nights, I've thought about nothing but kissing you properly. I'm ashamed to say it, but it's kept me up a few times.
Is that so? I asked teasingly. Sounds like you ought to do something about it. Leo's grin was nothing short of excited.
May I?
It'd be my pleasure, I stammered as a blush stained my cheeks. Leo smiled victoriously. He leaned in slowly, and I eagerly met him halfway, our lips touching in a kiss that was both tender and filled with longing. But the moment was cut short as Leo's radio crackled to life, the dispatcher's voice urgent.
Leo, we need you at the station. There's a fire on Sand Street.
Leo pulled away, a frown creasing his brow.
I'm sorry I have to cut this short, Ryan. I have to go,
he said, the weight of duty heavy in his voice. I understand, I replied, watching as Leo hurriedly spoke into his radio as he began jogging away, his silhouette gradually blending into the night. A week later, the week that followed was nothing short of magical. Leo and I had fallen into this incredible rhythm, texting throughout the day whenever we got the chance and calling each other late into the night. It was as if we were making up for lost time, and every moment felt perfect. I had never been happier, and I couldn't believe I was part of something so special. Tommy and Richie, my colleagues at work, noticed the change immediately. They'd ribbed me about being glued to my phone, but their teasing was lighthearted. They could see the joy that radiated from me. Joy I couldn't deny. I was happy, truly happy. The only shadow over our newfound happiness was the fire station's staffing situation. They had been running short lately, and Leo was caught up in back-to-back shifts. It meant that our in-person moments were scarce, but we made up for it with our digital connection. I couldn't keep the smile off my face as I walked up toward my apartment. Leo had texted earlier to inform me that we would have to reschedule our call for a little later, and the designated time was already fast approaching. The door closed behind me with a soft click as I stepped into the quiet of my apartment. The day had been long, and I couldn't wait to end it. I tossed my keys on the table and made my way to the couch, sinking into the cushions with a contented sigh. I had just pulled a throw blanket over my legs when my phone buzzed. A smile tugged at my lips before I even picked it up. I knew it was Leo. His name lit up the screen, and I answered immediately. "Hey," I greeted, my voice softening instinctively.
Ryan? Leo's voice came through warmly. Sorry I missed our usual call time. The station's been a madhouse.
Don't worry about it, I reassured him, adjusting the phone against my ear. How are you holding up? There was a pause, and I could almost picture him running a hand through his hair.
It's been tough, but talking to you makes it all worth it.
Oh, really now? I asked teasingly.
Definitely worth it,
he replied without missing a beat. It was a little uncharacteristic of me, but I couldn't stop myself from chuckling.
I've got some good news, Ryan. I've got some time off tomorrow. I was thinking we could have a movie date and maybe grab dinner after.
Really? I asked, leaping off of the sofa.
Yeah, I was thinking we could get some burgers too on Sand Street. I helped put out a fire around there and found it. I'll text you the address.
My phone vibrated a few seconds later with the address Leo promised, and after acknowledging the text, we chatted about our day, about the little things that didn't seem to matter but meant everything. And as we talked, the distance between us seemed to shrink until it felt like he was right there with me, under the soft glow of my living room lamp. The next day, with our date in mind, I was a bundle of nerves and excitement. I arrived at the cinema on Sand Street early, my eyes scanning the crowd for Leo. The minutes ticked by, turning into an hour, and my excitement began to wane into worry. Where was he? Finally, Leo burst through the door, his face apologetic.
Ryan, I'm so sorry,
He said, rushing over.
There was a fire across town, and I couldn't leave until it was under control.
I could see the exhaustion etched on his face, and my irritation melted away. It's okay, I said. Are you all right? He nodded, a weary smile on his lips.
Yeah, just a long day. Since the movie's out of the cards now, how about we head back to the bar for that pool rematch?
It was the perfect fallback plan. We found ourselves back at the bar, cues in hand, the familiar clack of balls filling the space between our conversation. We caught up on our week, and he filled me in on the fire that had delayed him. Game was a little tougher than the first time, mostly because I had secretly been practicing. But in the end, Leo's skill won out, and he claimed victory with a triumphant whoop.
Next weekend, dinner at my favorite steakhouse. Your treat, he declared.
All right, fine, I agreed, grinning. It was the stipulation of our match. The loser had to treat the winner to whatever they wanted. He was lucky I didn't. With our game over and done with, Leo had offered to walk me halfway home. It had become one of my favorite things to do with him when we met up, mostly because it always ended with a goodbye kiss. The walk home was leisurely, filled with laughter as Leo recounted our high school clashes.
Remember the time you tried to outdo me in Mr. Henderson's class?
He chuckled. How could I forget? You were so smug when you got the higher grade. I laughed in return. We eventually arrived at the halfway point, and it was obvious our night together had come to an end. Leo turned to me, his eyes soft in the streetlight's glow.
I had a great time tonight, Ryan. I'm really sorry for missing the movie,
he said bashfully. It's all right. You were out saving lives. I can't hold that against you, I smiled back. But you're going to have to make it up to me somehow. Leo smiled and pulled me close till our bodies were pressed flush against each other's. He leaned in and gently took my lips in his. It amazed me how gentle he could be despite all the power his large frame boasted. Once we pulled apart, Leo looked up to the sky as though he was bracing for impact. What's the matter, Leo? I asked, taking his hands in mine.
I got a promotion,
he responded, averting his eyes from mine. That's great. I'm so happy for you. I was really excited that all of his extra hours hadn't gone unnoticed.
It's not that simple, Ryan. The promotion involves me moving out of town,
Leo shakily revealed as he ran his hands through his hair. Realization dawned on me. I was barely seeing Leo as it was. If he moved out of town, it'd become a lot more difficult to spend time with him. Leo placed a comforting hand on my shoulder and told me he hadn't decided yet, but it didn't make me feel any better. There was absolutely no way I could keep this. Not again. You should go, Leo, I said, pulling away from him. Leo was just about to speak when his receiver went off, demanding he return to the station ASAP. I took the chance to slip away. 3 days later, the next couple of days after Leo's bombshell felt very different, and everyone could tell. My colleagues noticed a change immediately. My phone, once a source of constant buzzing and laughter, lay silent beside my keyboard. They gathered around me at lunch, their expression a mix of concern and curiosity. Ryan, you've been way too quiet. What's up? Richie's voice broke the silence. I sighed, my gaze fixed on the sandwich I hadn't felt like eating. It's Leo, I admitted. He's been offered a promotion, which is amazing, but it means he'll have to move away. A heavy quiet settled over us. There was no easy solution, and no amount of brainstorming was going to change that. But Tom, ever the pragmatist, chimed in.
Don't shut him out. He's probably struggling with this as much as you are. Weren't you supposed to help him come out? Why would you abandon him?
Tom's words stuck with me, and later that evening I found myself calling Leo. I felt bad for shutting him out when he was suffering just as much as I was. It was incredibly selfish, not to mention. The call connected, and after the initial pleasantries, the conversation shifted to the heart of the matter. Leo, about the promotion, I started, hesitance evident in my voice.
I've been thinking, maybe I should turn it down. Stay here, with you.
Leo interjected, his tone laced with uncertainty. No, you can't do that, I insisted firmly. I wouldn't be able to forgive myself if you passed up this opportunity because of me.
Don't say that, Ryan. You've already done more than enough for me. Thanks to you, I finally did it yesterday,
Leo said, sounding very pleased with himself. My ears perked up immediately. I was interested in what he had to say. What did you do, Leo?
I came out to two of my closest colleagues, Leo said gingerly.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing! Congratulations! How did they take it? I asked, angling the phone so I could hear him better.
It went surprisingly well. They were so happy they took me out to celebrate.
Leo's excitement was infectious. I am so happy for you, Leo, but the job is not done. You need to tell a lot more people. I hated having to rain on his parade, but it was the truth.
I've actually been thinking about this. If I'm really going to take this promotion, then I think it might be best that I come out right before I leave, on the night of my farewell ceremony.
Leo responded quickly, and it was clear that he thought this through. Leo and I ended up talking for almost an hour, weighing the pros and cons, the what-ifs and maybes. In the end, I was able to persuade Leo to accept the promotion. I promised to support him, even if it meant helping him pack when it was time for him to move. We decided we would make the most of the weekends, just as we had been doing. Distance would be an obstacle, but not an insurmountable one. We were determined to make it work, no matter what it took. A week later, the morning of Leo's moving day dawned clear and bright, a stark contrast to the turmoil of emotions churning inside me. I had woken up early, unable to sleep, my mind replaying our last conversation over and over. The decision had been made, and today was the day it would all become real. I arrived at Leo's place, my car packed with not just my luggage, but also an assortment of boxes and bags filled with essentials for the first few days in his new home. As I pulled up, I saw him standing there, his posture tense, a look of surprise spreading across his face when he noticed the extra luggage.
Ryan, what?
He started, his voice trailing off as he gestured to the bags. I couldn't help but smile, despite the bittersweet ache in my chest. I'm not moving, Leo, I clarified quickly, seeing the mix of hope and confusion in his eyes. But I've taken a temporary leave from work. I'm coming with you to help you get settled in.
And how long is temporary?
Leo asked, not wanting to come between me and my career. A week. I took a week off. For a moment, Leo just stared at me, and I could see the emotions flickering across his face. Shock, relief, and something deeper. Something that mirrored my own feelings. Then, without a word, he closed the distance between us, his arms wrapping around me in a tight embrace. I returned the hug just as fiercely, my heart pounding in my chest. We stood there, in the midst of the chaos of moving, holding on to each other as if we could somehow stop time. When we finally pulled apart, Leo's eyes were shining with unshed tears.
You're incredible, you know that?
He said, his voice thick with emotion. I shrugged, trying to play it off, even though I felt the same way. I just couldn't let you do this alone, I admitted. And then, as if it was the most natural thing in the world, Leo leaned in and kissed me. It was a kiss filled with all the words we hadn't said, all the fears about the future, and all the love that we couldn't quite express. It was a promise, a goodbye, and a beginning, all at once. As we broke the kiss, I knew that no matter what the future held, we were in it together, and with that thought, I grabbed a box from the back of my car, ready to tackle the day ahead. It was going to be a long one, but I wouldn't have wanted to be anywhere else. Conclusion. Leo came out to the whole fire department later that evening, right before we left, and it was truly emotional. He was well received and everyone cheered him on. In the end, he and I had both been worried over nothing. Just like his two close friends, the rest of his unit were very understanding and wished him the very best. My week-long vacation with Leo was nothing short of a dream. He and I had spent a lot of time together familiarizing ourselves with his new town. Leo also showed me around the fire station, and although he did not allow me to go with him for actual emergencies, I felt a lot closer to his side of life. Over the next few months, after I'd returned back to New York, Leo would get another promotion, making him the fire chief's deputy. Leo and I would continue to see one another over the weekends and holidays, until I ultimately demanded a transfer from my firm in New York to another branch in Leo's new town. The end. Do you think you could put years of history behind and fall for a rival? Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become part of our Rainbow Force and to stay wholesome.